Happy to be joined here by Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here at the RGC Summit. We do appreciate it. So much going on right now in the House of Representatives. It looks like, at least for the time being, order has been restored. How do you move forward here?
Well, we know we have a list of things we got to get done. We have on 17 November, our funding runs out. So we're going to have a short-term or mid-term continuing resolution. That's just a fact. We have some Republicans who are going to resist that, though. They're going to want zero CR. There's no way to get from here to there without at least a short-term CR. So we'd ask Republicans to stick together and let's get a CR that we can support. If we have a group break off, they're forcing us to work with on the Democrat side, right? So some of these folks don't think. But we're going to need a short-term spending thing. In the meantime, we're also going to be doing, we have 7 more appropriations bills we got to get done. We've already done 80% of the funding, though. These other appropriations bills are some of the smaller ones. We got to get the Farm Bill done. We have to get FISA done, and we have to get the defense bill reconciled with the Senate and get that passed. We got a lot of work to do.
Easy peasy.
And we don't have a lot of time to do it.
I got to ask you, Republican speakers just, they don't last. They don't last very long.
Yeah.
How much rope does the new speaker have?
He has a lot of rope with me, but we have 5 to 10 people that it's more about themselves. They're not team players. I realize someone doesn't have to be 100% for them to be my speaker, right? I'll take 80%, 85%. Mike Johnson's a good friend of mine, but he wasn't my first choice. But he's a good man, and he has a good vision. But there is a group of folks who, it literally is their way or the highway. There's a group of them that refuse to support Ukraine. I think we should support Ukraine. So there's like 8 of them who says they'll never do a continuing resolution. So in other words, we have a small group that cannot find it in their hearts to think broader than themselves. They're more into the clicks on social media and certain, cable TV. But I want our country to succeed. I want our Congress to succeed. I want to grow our majority. We got to think bigger than just ourselves. So we're gonna have it's gonna be tough. Where there's a small group who are not interested in being on the team. In fact, if you look at our party today, we have a 4-seat majority, but we really consist of 2 different parties within our party. We have the Reagan Republicans, traditional Republicans, and then I would say we have the populists or isolationists. We don't agree in a lot of areas. And if you separate us, we're not in the majority. That's what's been so challenging to get things done since January.
Speaker Johnson, his first order of business was to pass a resolution supporting Israel and condemning Hamas. Resolutions are great in terms of support going forward. In terms of a long-term conflict, do you think he's on board?
Absolutely. One thing I do know about Mike, he's pro-Israel, and so he did that resolution first thing. But we know the administration is asking for about $15 billion to go to Israel. It's going to have wide support. It will get done. Mind you, we do about $3.5 billion every year through the defense bill. And if we need to do more down the road, we'll do more. We have an obligation, a moral obligation, I would say a spiritual obligation, a practical obligation, all the above, to stand by Israel. And I do believe that Speaker Johnson feels the same way.
Do Israel and Ukraine need to be detwined in terms of passing support?
I support Ukraine. I do think they should be de-linked. I don't want to hold up the Israeli aid. We need to do that like right now. I do support Ukraine aid, though, because it's in our national security interest that Ukraine remain independent. We know for a fact Putin wants to restore his old territory. Ukraine's just one step. He's been threatening the Baltics, Poland, other countries. And I think when a dictator says what they want to do, you should believe him. Too many times we dismiss it. We find out they were being sincere. And so for about 5% of our defense budget, we've been able to remove 300,000 Russians from the battlefield, destroy half their tanks, and much more. The Ukrainians are doing the fighting. We're just giving them the means to win. And I think it is right from a strategic and a moral perspective to stand by Ukraine. But I think we should de-link them because let's get Israel done. Let's have this debate. It's got to win on its own merits. I think Ukraine will be linked on our side with border security and getting that done. I think we've got to do both. We have many in our conference who won't do Ukraine unless they get border. I think that's just the reality of our conference right now.
We've seen a number of presidential candidates speak here today. last year when the Republican Jewish Coalition Summit was held, it was almost like it wasn't a cattle call, but basically window shopping for the Republican establishment, especially Republican Jewry, trying to find out exactly where their interests, their passions lie, because we didn't know President Trump would run for re-election at this point. Now we see the polls come out week after week, month after month, showing President Trump way ahead. Is there room at this point for a divergence of ideas, or do you feel like the Republican Party has coalesced behind the president with no other decision to be made here?
I think maybe the activists have, but if you look at polling generically, President Biden and President Trump really rate lowest when you do the polling of the entire populace. Literally, you have two folks that are polling at 38% roughly, running against each other. Yeah, maybe their activists are still, but in my own view, I mean, what I really enjoyed today, every candidate but one expressed 100% support for Israel, and that we have an obligation. And by the way, the one that didn't, I thought he was wrong. What I heard from him, using very fancy words, Vivek Ramaswamy, basically said we love Israel, but they got to do it on their own. We don't do that to our allies, and Israel is a small nation, 7 million people. They can't do this on their own. Right? They need our help. And so I disagreed with him, but all the other candidates expressed strong support, and at least we have unanimity with that. I personally think, when you look at the overall numbers, Nikki Haley, if she was our nominee, will be the next president of the United States. I cannot say that necessarily about President Trump. I think a lot of folks like his policy, but like I came from Omaha area, he lost by about 7%, and they didn't vote for Biden. A lot of them voted for Trump, or they voted against Trump because of the chaos, the name calling, and it's more the personality things. And I think that's still a factor in 2024. And I got to be candid with you. I want to win. I want the GOP in the White House, and I want to go with someone that I have much higher confidence can win the general election. Someone like Nikki Haley would do it.
I want to talk to you about that, because it's not just the White House that's at stake, it's Congress that's at stake as well. You were on a panel with Lee Zeldin earlier today. Yeah. His gubernatorial race kind of lifted the tides of the congressional candidates in New York, and ergo gave Republicans the House. How concerned are you about the presidential ticket and how that will affect down-ballot federal races?
We are a very precarious time. If we have the wrong person at the top of the ticket and they lose the White House, they're very apt if we lose one more seat in the Senate, and if we lose 5 seats in the House. The Democrats have made it pretty clear that they will get rid of the filibuster, right? And when you get rid of the filibuster, you can pack the Supreme Court. You can do whatever you want with Roe v. Wade. They will run roughshod over the conservatives in our country. The only thing that prevented them in the last 2 years earlier, the previous Congress, was that they were 2 votes shy at that point of overturning the filibuster, right? They wanted to do it, and in the last election, they gained a seat. So we're 1 seat away in the Senate, and we only have a 4-seat majority in the House right now. We are very close to the Democrats getting rid of the filibuster and doing whatever they want legislatively, to include packing the Supreme Court. We got to have the right person at the top of the ticket that will not only win the White House, but will elevate the House and the Senate. And by the way, let's think about this. After 2016, we lost 40 seats in the House. We had a bad 2020. We had a bad 2022. So we need to have a fresh face at the top, in my view, that's not only liked for policy, but also respected for character and judgment.
I can see where you're going with that. Congressman Don Bacon, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.